Namaste. Welcome to the Shaman The Mermaid. I'm Michael, and this is my wife, Katrina. We're here to give you the astrological weather. We're kicking it right off with a full moon in Leo, which is happening this Saturday, February 8th, and is setting the tone for the whole month, or the whole moon cycle, until the new moon, which will be in Pisces on Sunday, February 22nd. This one has a lot of Mars, Aries, and we're going to introduce someone to you named Eris energy here. But with that, let's get our theme or mantra down.
Well, because the full moon is in Leo, we're using that lion archetype as the impetus for the theme, because the lion is the lion-hearted or the brave heart or the courageous one. So courage is really the key to this next cycle of talk that we're going through. And the theme this time is love blooms when courage is the caretaker. Remember in The Wizard of Oz, the cowardly lion was looking for, he wanted heart, and he had it all along. He just needed courage in order to find that heart. And that is essentially the message here in this time, because there's a lot of energy coming at us at this time, and has been coming at us, not just this little 2-week window that we're talking through. There's been strife and struggle and pain and heartache and dissonance and discord, and there's a key player, as Michael mentioned, Eris, that has been in the backdrop of all the astrology reports, and she's a newly relative discovered dwarf planet, but her mythology has been around for thousands of years, and the Greeks made her the goddess of strife and discord. Her name in Roman mythology is Discordia, so discord. And she is in the sign of Aries, so not to confuse Eris with Aries. In some mythologies, they're brother and sister. But Eris brings this energy into the playing field, and Aries is the battlefield. Aries is the warrior. So she's on the battlefield with strife and struggle, and we've been feeling it. I know we've been feeling it as a collective, and most of us individually have had some of the pain and disharmony, and she's also forgetfulness and disillusionment, all the things that are plagues to our humanity. She's pretty much responsible for. Those are her children. The myth has them play her children. And so the courage is important at this time, because when these energies come at us, it's very easy to go into a place of fear, and we hide and we play small and we become the cowardly lion. And what we really want is love. Love, not necessarily romantic love, but that's a beautiful piece of our existence, is when we find another. But love in all the ways that it shows up. Love is a sense of belonging and connection. Love as creativity. Love is insight and awareness and connection. I guess that's belonging. So we want this, and if we want this, we have to be courageous. The courage is really the main weapon we need to hold at this time to cut through strife and discord and pain and forgetfulness. It's the key. The courageous heart is the one who's going to achieve ultimately that love. Do you want to speak about Venus and Chiron moving into Aries?
Yes. The day before the full moon on Friday, February 7th, Venus will come out of the sign of Pisces, where she is comfortable, or more suited, some would say, and she enters in the sign of Aries, so out of water and into fire, out of the boat and into the battlefield. And Venus represents our values, what brings us into connection and relationship and community, and how we find beauty and truth and love. And then Aries is that masculine yang energy that says, I want this, I desire this, my instinct is for this, I go for this. And in right way, that can be using that Aries energy to be courageous and go for love. Be courageous and go for community. Be courageous and gather people together and make them feel supported and harmonized. That takes a lot of courage to stand up and create a new community and to say that I have values that are around love and not around anger and defeating others and competition. Aries used in wrong way is competition, and it is strife and all the things said about Eris. And so this is flavoring that new moon, or that full moon in Leo, and the full moon is always illuminating things, and so the full moon is helping to illuminate this Venus going into Aries energy. And then 2 days after the full moon, Venus, while still in the sign of Aries, will conjoin with Chiron, which is the wounded healer. And that's flavoring all of the wounds that we have around the feminine. So many of us feel wounded that we can't feel love, that we can't be in community, that we're not worthy, that we're not lovable, that we're not seen by others. And that's the big Chiron and Aries wound. And 2 things usually happen when we're wounded. 1, we go defensive and hide and shame and guilt and curl up and retract and try to build walls, and I'll just order from Amazon and Starbucks online. I don't want to talk to people or see anybody face to face. Maybe I'll do an occasional Facebook post, but God knows I would never want to see someone eye to eye. I mean, we're being a little bit...
You made the point.
Yep. Or the other side of a wounded animal is then it lashes out and tries to attack, gets the sword, pulls out the claws, tries to bite back.
And doesn't have any real, it can't sense if it's friend or foe. They're just attacking anybody and everybody, lashing out. And we see this, we do this. We take our own wounds and then lash out, oftentimes at our loved ones, because we know that they'll still love us even though we've just swiped at them and struck them. So this is potentially there, and Michael alluded to the playing small and curling up and being the coward, which can lead to, with Eris and Venus and Chiron all there in the sign of Aries, that can really play out the victim card. The victim card could be thrown down really easy on this battlefield, and woe is me and martyrdom and everybody is oppressing me and none of this is my fault, and a whole lot of shaming can come out of this too. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. Yeah, the pissed victim. And it's not productive or healthy or wholesome way to approach your own wounds. Of course, when we play victim, it's not serving anybody on that one. So be aware of that coming up. And you might see it amongst your friends and family where the victim is rising up again, and we eyeball rolling, oh God, there she goes again, she's going to be that. What we need to do there is offer understanding and love in that situation. We need to be courageous and give our love even when we are like, we don't want to. It doesn't mean that you have to be their doormat and wipe up all their spills and take on all their energy, but have a compassionate heart around the victimization. And oftentimes when we ignore that behavior, it will go away. So we can be loving without coddling it. You know, I hear that you're in pain, sorry to hear that, gotta go. We don't have to stay there and play in it. So have your game plan for the victims that might be showing up in your life, and be aware of your own victimization. But remember, at the same time, there's a great chance to stand in your power and assert yourself for things that are love, for things that are of value, for things that you need to stand up for and be courageous to stand up for. And that means being vulnerable, and our wounded hearts don't like to be vulnerable, but take down the barbed wire, pull back the chain link fence, and let yourself go exposed, raw, naked out there, and be courageous in doing so. That's a big piece. Let's move on to Mercury.
Sure. I want to add one tiny thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
We just watched Brene Brown's video on the courage to be vulnerable, and she said courage absolutely has to be connected to vulnerability. And when someone is being courageous, they're putting themselves in a vulnerable place. Either they're going out on a risk, they're being emotionally exposed, or they're putting themselves in an uncertain place.
But you can't, she said they're not two ends of the spectrum. Vulnerability is not here and courage over here. They're actually right together. You can't be one without the other. So to be courageous, and remember the theme was love blooms when courage is the caretaker. If we want love, we have to be vulnerable, period. It's just that simple and that hard all at the same time. I said go into Mercury, but right before Mercury goes retrograde, there's another energy that you could talk about with Mars.
The same day that Mercury goes retrograde, Mars comes out of the sign of Sagittarius and goes into Capricorn. Mars has been cruising through Sagittarius for a couple weeks now, and Mars in Sagittarius is, it's the dreamer and the visionary who says, I want to climb Mount Everest, I want to go to the top of Kilimanjaro, I want to go to the bottom of the ocean and see the Marinara Trench, I want to solve this problem. And it's saying it wants to do lots of things, but Sagittarius is not an action-oriented sign. Capricorn says, I love that idea, now do it. No, I mean it. Do it. But Mars actually likes that, because Mars likes to go into action. It's the fire side of ourselves, the yang part of ourselves, that if you give it a task, and the task is aligned with your soul purpose or aligned with your Leo passion. Leo has to do with passion and stepping into one's romance for life and having a purpose and being creative. So that full moon in Leo is seeding the energy for Mars going into Capricorn, and it says, okay, let's get to work here.
Yeah, Mars is excited. It gets to do it. It's like telling a little kid, go, run as fast as you can. They go, pew! Mars is going to do it. So everything that you've been visualizing for the last month or so, let it happen. This is a good time for that. And hold on Mars in Capricorn. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But now Mercury, that's probably the other big dog of this talk.
Everybody's favorite, Mercury in retrograde. It starts that day on the 16th, and it goes all the way through March 9th. This retrograde, Mercury will be moving back and forth through two signs. It's currently in Pisces. It's going to go back into Aquarius, and then stop, and then go forward and back into Pisces. And Mercury retrograde is going to end on the full moon in Virgo on March 9th. And so it'll come into a place, the full moon will be shining down, and it says, what have you learned? That's my astro comment.
And Mercury is about communication and listening and speaking and truth. You know, it's the fifth chakra, and the planetary signs, it lives in the fifth chakra. And our fifth chakra is our truth center. And so this is a great time as we go into retrograde on the 16th of February to allow ourselves to review and reflect and kind of recalibrate what we value and hold to be true. And if you remember, Venus is in Aries, and Venus is our values and the things that we hold dear to us in our heart. And she's on that battlefield in Aries, which I think Venus in Aries is passion. And we can put this truth in our review as we have to slow down and take a look at things while things are in retrograde. We have a chance to really see, what are we passionate about? And then we can put that passion into action back to Mars in Capricorn. So there can be like this beautiful connection between Venus in Aries, Mars's home field, Mars in Capricorn and Mercury retrograde, it's allowing us to look at what we hold to be truth and what we hold to be our values, put that passion, find the passion around those truths, and put it into action in that Capricorn energy. That's the upshot of the positive, and I'm always looking for the silver lining whenever things are looking bleak. There's always a silver lining, and that's what I look for, and that's what I saw in this particular report, that piece that could happen.
I would agree with that. This is a time where when Mercury's in retrograde, sometimes the old school knowledge is don't do anything. Stay at home, don't sign a contract. Those are the two old school things. But really, retrograde is a time for us to review and make sure things are in alignment with our soul's purpose. And let's say you have been, while Mars was in Sagittarius, dreaming of a retreat center, dreaming of how you're going to fulfill a purpose that will serve other people. And now when Mars goes into Capricorn and Mercury's retrograde, it's a good time to pick up something that has been long-term or in the works or in the planning and say, let's do it. Let's now make it go into action. And Venus in Aries helps that. Says, here's your passion, go for it.
Just a few more app mentions, but we won't dive into it. But for those of you that know your astrology, Mars will be trining Uranus on the 21st. So that's a harmonious conjunction between Uncle Uranus, the random character, and your go-getter initiative energy. So something could spark, light up, and go. And also on that same day, that means Mars will be squaring Chiron. So potential for that wound to kind of bust open a little bit. But if you have heads up around it, you can use that initiative warrior energy to heal the wound. Let's put the salve on. Let's go in and be that Red Cross first aid and, you know, charge through the battlefield and get that wound taken care of. You want to talk about Jupiter sextile Neptune?
Sure. The day before that, on the 20th of February, Jupiter, which is our visions, what we have hope in, what we believe in, what we want to go on that vision quest for and fulfill our dreams, will be sextiling Neptune. Sextile is a harmonious, helpful, supportive energy. And Neptune can be our spiritual path, our spiritual awareness, the collective unconscious, its dreams, its unconditional love. It ties into our theme of love blooms when courage is the caretaker. This is another representation of that same theme. Love blooms when courage is the caretaker. Jupiter says, take courage and go for what it is that you believe in. Trust, have faith. And the Neptune part of it, the spiritual part, says, take care of this, have love for it, nurture it, make it your garden. And I think this is going to be a nice flavoring to this energy.
Yes, I'm excited for a lot of these aspects. Not letting fear get in the way when that whole Eris backdrop. And by the way, Eris is squaring Pluto and Saturn. Remember, we keep talking about this ominous Pluto-Saturn conjunction that's going to be staying throughout the year. Well, Eris will be squaring it throughout the year too. So that's basically strife and struggle is squaring your sense of right and wrong and your soul's purpose. So you can easily go victim on that. Just have that in awareness that victim is not where we want to go, and instead use courage to find your passion and let love bloom. Really, heart of the lion at this time.
Roar.
All right, well, we'll see you on the new moon on February 22nd. And new moon in Pisces, and the sun will also have moved into Pisces on the 18th. So we'll talk more about Pisces and that kind of spiritual flow towards one love on the next report.
One love.
All right, namaste.
Namaste.